Hello everyone and welcome back to yet another marvelous anime video. Usually, a villain is the main character of his own story, and oftentimes such characters make the most compelling antagonists. However, there are a few bad guys out there who make your skin crawl as they defy all logic regarding their motivations. These individuals simply exist to inflict pain and suffering upon all those who cross their path. Such people can be found in both fiction and the real world and have invoked a sense of horror and morbid fascination in us human beings for ages. In today's video, we'll be talking about one such person who appears to be a villain who perfectly embodies this concept until he doesn't. What we mean by that is Kei Uzuki. The antagonist of the series is a far more complex character who embodies both of these facets of a traditional villain, making him something entirely unique. The series was written and illustrated by Yuto Suzuki and is currently being published in Shonen Jump magazine after an initial one-shot manga titled Sakamoto was published on Jump Giga on December 26, 2019. The story follows the life of a legendary former hitman, Sakamoto, who now leads a sedentary family life after having quit his violent lifestyle since meeting his wife. Even though Sakamoto has left his old world behind, his former associates and enemies don't seem to be too keen on returning the favor. As his past starts to catch up with him, Sakamoto must once again walk down an old familiar path, but this time it's to protect his new world. Amongst all the threats that Sakamoto has to contend with, Kei Uzuki poses the greatest. This serial killer, who poses as an assassin, is set to tear Sakamoto's world down, and there's next to no one capable of standing in his way. We'll be discussing everything from his motivations, personality, and powers as we do a deep dive into the man, also known as X, for the trademark X sign he leaves at the site of his murders. So, without wasting any more time, fasten your seatbelts as we dive into the twisted mind of Kei Uzuki, the primary antagonist of Sakamoto's days. Let us begin. Origins and background. Not much is known about this master assassin's background other than the fact that his preferred victims are other hitmen. He was raised at the Alkmaar orphanage, which was later revealed to have been funded by the Japanese Association of Assassins to train orphans into killers. Kei is initially shown to be a boy with a kind and shy disposition who doesn't believe violence to be the answer. In fact, he was forced to murder against his own volition thanks to his manipulative and power-hungry older brother, Sei Asaki. In fact, Sei was the one responsible for administering the orphanage in which Kei and the other children lived and was the mastermind behind the nefarious plan of turning children into killers. Kei is manipulated into kidnapping the wife and daughter of the JAA by his older brother, but instead offers to kill the leader of the order, an elite task force within the JAA whose role is to maintain order within the assassin world. However, he violates his contract and disappears along with Rion Asaki, but is later tracked by his brother. Kei is then once again blackmailed by his brother into killing an unknown high-profile assassin in exchange for the lives of all the children in Alkmaar. Tragedy, however, would strike when he discovers that the target is none other than Rion, who he is forced to kill by Sei. He's taunted by his brother for even attempting such a foolish thing as leaving the assassin world. That would be the last that anybody would see of Kei until his reappearance as the infamous serial killer assassin, X, aka Slur, with the incident with Rion having irrevocably altered his personality and goals. We know that at some point the orphanage was burned to the ground and there were only 6 survivors. We also know that of those 6 survivors, 4 of them belong to X's gang. Kei Uzuki resurfaces around the same time that a bounty is placed on Sakamoto's head as fate puts them on a collision course. Appearance. Kei Uzuki is a good-looking man with a slender build and an average height. He has blonde hair, which is slightly unkempt, with a fringe falling on his face. He has cold, emotionless blue eyes with cat-like irises, and he's normally seen wearing an orange turtleneck under a beige trench coat. He usually pairs this with black pants and formal shoes. His outfit seems to have barely changed from his orphanage days, except for the addition of the trench coat. Personality. Although there is no doubt that Kei Uzuki is a villain and a serial killer, one cannot ignore the fact that he hasn't completely lost the emotions that he believes he's abandoned after Rion's death. There's no denying the fact that he's a cold-blooded murderer who's responsible for the death of over a quarter of the JAA's members. This is a drastic shift in personality compared to the shy and easily manipulated young boy from the orphanage. He's still capable of displaying this softer side of himself, as we can see during his interaction with the members of his gang. Kei appears much more caring when talking to Gadu, a member of his gang and a fellow orphan from Alkmaar. He also shows immense sadness and regret following Uda's self-sacrifice to allow them to escape the clutches of Takamura. His personality seems to flip-flop from a cold and calculating individual to a much warmer and kinder person, depending on whether he's alone or with his gang. Kei also suffers from dissociative identity disorder, a condition due to which he has multiple personalities in order to deal with stress and trauma. This usually manifests for Kei during battle or when his life is under threat, allowing him to match the characteristics of the individuals who have driven him into the corner. It's to be noted that these personas remain within Kei even after the death of the individuals which caused them to manifest. His imitation is, in fact, so accurate that even individuals who have known the person he is mimicking admit that Kei's impersonation is almost indistinguishable from the original. We see this when Sakamoto and Nagumo admit that Uzuki's Rion is so similar to their old friend that they can hardly even see the difference. It's almost more accurate to label this an ability rather than a disorder because he's also able to copy their fighting style, which then remains with him, as seen in the case of Takamura. When fighting the Swordmaster, Kei is able to mimic not only his characteristics but also his sword technique, despite having shown no previous signs of proficiency with the katana. In fact, his imitation is so good that he's able to kill Takamura with his own technique, showing that his copy is able to surpass the original. This makes him an extremely dangerous opponent with no real ceiling, who only gets stronger against more powerful opponents. Motivation and goal. Following the death of Rion and the majority of his fellow orphans owing to the manipulation by his brother, Kei is hell-bent on taking out the Order and the JAA. His motivations aren't exactly clear on whether he wants to rid the world of assassins or establish his own order, but one thing is for sure: no hitman is safe while he still breathes. The fact that we hear about him only after Sakamoto has a bounty placed on him perhaps shows that he still plays by certain codes of the assassin world, having not come after the now retired hitman before that. There is a relationship between the two, even if it's an indirect one, as unlike Sakamoto, who managed to retire, get married, and start a family, Kei was brutally denied his exit from the same world that Sakamoto so nonchalantly left. In fact, while Sakamoto gained a family, Kei lost the person most important to him through his own hands, and he was betrayed and used by his own blood brother. This could explain his interest in the protagonist and his desire to kill him. Kei Uzuki is a scourge set to destroy all the things he perceives have wronged him, and that includes the world he grew up in and everyone associated with it. Skills and ability. Master Combatant. From an extremely young age, Kei Uzuki has been instructed in the art of killing, which makes him a lethal human being. We see him fighting opponents twice his age as a child, so it comes as no surprise that he was able to take out almost a quarter of the total number of assassins within the Japanese Association of Assassins. He was deemed so dangerous that the Order was unleashed on him. The Order is a group consisting of the most elite assassins under the JAA who are meant to maintain order within their world. By eliminating such a large number of opponents and defeating the likes of Takamura, Kei has established himself as one of the strongest assassins in the entire series, one with the potential to even surpass a prime Sakamoto. Master Strategist. Kei Uzuki's calm and cold demeanor isn't just for show, as he's extremely calculating and has been able to stay under the radar of the JAA and the Order for so long. The fact that it wasn't until he murdered a quarter of their members that the JAA was even made aware of his existence shows that all of his killings were meticulously planned. Not only that, but the fact that he was able to kill so many of them was not just due to his combat prowess, but due to his acute tactical acumen. We see this side of him even as a young boy planning missions that would be impossible for someone of his age. Kei Uzuki is a perfect blend of brains and brawn with a slight hint of psychotic thrown in there for good measure, making him a deadly and unpredictable entity. Enhanced speed and reflexes. It's quite clear that Kei Uzuki possesses incredible speed and agility, but it isn't until his brief fight with Sakamoto that we get a measure of how fast and agile he is. Granted, Sakamoto was already retired for a long time at this point, and no matter how inhumane our protagonist's skills are, he was bound to be rusty. Despite this, Kei Uzuki is not only able to keep up with Sakamoto's god-tier speed, he also actually injures him. He manages to stab Sakamoto in the stomach, and his attacks are hard for even the legendary assassin to register. Considering his age, Kei Uzuki would most likely surpass Sakamoto, as he has so much more ceiling to grow, and it'll be interesting to see how much he grows by the end of the series. Equipment. Sword Whip. Unlike many of his contemporaries who prefer firearms, Uzuki's weapon of choice is a blade with several segmented sections that resembles a sword but can be used as a whip. This allows him to engage opponents in both close and mid-range using the sword or the whip form depending on his needs. His proficiency with this weapon can be seen in both his fights between Sakamoto and Takamura. This weapon perfectly encapsulates his personality, which is as ambiguous as his weapon, as the identity of both aren't clear and they fluctuate between one form and another. Katana. After developing the Uzuki Takamura personality and killing the original Takamura, he seems to have added the latter's weapon, along with his personality, into his arsenal. The katana is an ordinary Japanese sword that belonged to Takamura. As of now, there are no special powers or abilities attached to it. Cetus Inversus. Dissociative identity disorder is not the only medical condition that Kei Uzuki suffers from. However, just like the identity disorder, this unique condition of his, called Cetus Inversus, often comes in clutch to save his life and works to his benefit. Simply put, Cetus Inversus is when someone's major internal organs are reversed or mirrored. This means that if someone were to shoot or stab Kei Uzuki on the left side of his chest, thinking that they would puncture his heart, they would miss by a mile as his heart is actually on the right side. This little secret has saved Kei from injuries that would ordinarily be fatal to someone like him, but due to his opponent's lack of knowledge regarding his unique physiology, he manages to get by. Some of the people who have failed to kill him include Nagumo and even Sakamoto himself. Marvelous verdict! If you're a fan of assassins and love films like John Wick or The Equalizer, you're gonna love this series. Sakamoto Days is very reminiscent of both these iconic films with a hint of comedy slapped on for fun. While the premise of an out-of-shape ex-hitman might seem straight out of a comedy film, the plot is anything but that. The series deals with several profound human emotions such as abandonment, existential crisis, the concept of family, and betrayal. Kei Uzuki shows us what happens when innocence is corrupted beyond recognition, and his actions, however twisted and misguided, stem from a longing to fill a hole in his heart that he doesn't realize will never get filled with his way of doing things. He also acts as an excellent foil for Sakamoto, where, unlike Kei, who is the result of innocence being corrupted, Sakamoto led a bloody and corrupt life but redeemed himself and started fresh. This perhaps also shows that there is yet hope for Kei Uzuki, but we're given the impression that he actively denies that there is redemption for him for the sins of his past, including the killing of Rion, which still weighs heavily upon him. It'll be interesting to see whether he does learn to forgive himself or continues to careen down this destructive path he's chosen. Perhaps we'll release an updated video for Kei's character if he ever finds his redemption, so be sure to keep an eye out for that. Sakamoto Days anime adaptation has just hit Netflix, where you can catch all the action, and we certainly believe that this is going to be one of the best animes this season, if not ever. So if this video piqued your interest or you're already watching the show and want to learn more, be sure to keep an eye out for more Sakamoto Days videos on our channel. Until then, you can check out our other videos where we cover a plethora of anime and discuss their lore, characters, and craft theories about them. For now though, we've come to the end of this video, so thanks for sticking with us right till the end. As always, if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Otherwise, stay safe and stay marvelous.